Hey, hello, gatekeepers, and happy 2025. Wherever you are, I pray that are taking time to take in the moment and to really thank God for this far that He has brought us. I am grateful that He has brought you and I to this point, to this season. As we cross the year, it's usually a time of reflection for me. I call it a time of double reflection. Every year, every 1st of January, I get a year older. Don't ask how old I am. I'm just somewhere navigating the fourth floor, and I think every year is coming with just, a deepened layer of reflection. And I pray that you too are reflecting about the things that you want to achieve, the things you're looking forward to, for you as a person, for you as a family, as a business, as a career person, and whatever aspect of your life. And my prayer is that God will really grant you the desires of your heart as you delight yourself in Him, as you delight yourself in His perfect will, that He will grant you all the things that you're desiring. I just want to take this moment to share just quick 2 or 3 or 4 reflections about this moment that we find ourselves in. And as I was thinking about the crossover, a lot of people having crossover services in churches, in many other places. But I felt like the crossing of the children of Israel into the promised land across the Jordan has a lot to teach us about crossings. And in Joshua chapter 4, something interesting happens as the children of Israel are crossing over to the land of their promise. This is something they had waited for a long time. And as they have crossed, God speaks to Joshua and He tells him, would you send some 12 people and let them collect stones and come and pile them on this other side, and let it be a memorial, so that when children in the next generations would ask you, what does this mean, you will tell them of my faithfulness. And I just thought of sharing this challenge with all of us as we cross into this new season that God has granted us. We do take some time and collect some stones, some metaphorical stones, stones of gratitude. I as I reflected about this story, these stones were not just stones. They were a reminder to Joshua and the entire nation of Israel that they had not gotten this far by their strength. And I think as we take some time to mark this moment with gratitude, we are in a sense collecting stones, and we are acknowledging that we haven't gotten this far by our own strength. So would you take some time? I know it's easy sometimes to think about all the things that didn't work, the economy, tough relationships, family dynamics. There are many things that may have brought some level of pain in your life. But I pray that in this moment you would choose to mark it with gratitude by collecting stones of gratitude. So would you go ahead and do that and just see, we are reminded to count our blessings and to see what the Lord has done, because gratitude is a gateway for joy. Second thought I wanted to share is, as they crossed the Jordan, the future was literally ahead of them. They had reached their land of promise, but it was going to take a warrior spirit for them to conquer all the things that God wanted for them. And I guess it's not any different for us. There are many things that God has in store for us. And I find it interesting in chapter 5 how they start. They're in enemy territory, and they're about to set off to conquer the land that was promised to their father Abraham. And God says, would you circumcise all the military age people? You would imagine that the right strategy would be, let's just charge and take over. But He tells them, would you pause? Be vulnerable before me. The circumcision was not just a physical thing to be in line with the covenant. It was also a posture of heart. that really the battles ahead are not yours, they're mine. And they're only going to be won in the way that I have designed for them to be won. And so it called for the nation to be obedient and to circumcise all those young men in the presence of enemies. And I feel like this is usually, before we start this new year, don't just get on doing stuff. Do you take some time and just be vulnerable before God in the form of prayer? We will be inviting the church from the 13th all the way to the 2nd of February for just a time of prayer and reflection, prayer and fasting. Would you take that time and to say, whatever victories I will have, I want to have them God's way? Because you see a similar pattern repeated in chapter 6, where they are unleashed to their first battle, which is Jericho. And Jericho is walled up, all the defenses are put, and they're wondering, hey, how will this be achieved? But God gives them the strategy. And as God gives us his strategy for 2025, it will take us really being in that place of vulnerability, that place of prayer, to get to hear a unique strategy that we can't possibly come up with. And I pray that that will be really your portion, that you would hear, that God will give you a unique strategy, that you would lean in to obey and to really trust him. He tells us, do not lean on your own understanding, that acknowledge all your ways before me and I'll make your path straight. So would you take some time to do that? I wanted to share those two reflections just as to provoke your thinking and reflection. And I also wanted to share this third thing. And as we have thought about where we are going, just like the nation of Israel was looking into their future, we're also looking into our future. And I've been reflecting a lot about where we are as a church. And one verse has been consistently coming to mind, and I wanted to share that. It was what we'd call our theme verse for the year. And we'll take a lot of time to unpack it, and I just wanted to take a minute or two to introduce it. It comes from Isaiah chapter 61. This is a verse, a chapter that is very, very popular because it really gives a picture of the work that Jesus came to do. And Prophet Isaiah is writing this ahead of the Messiah coming. And Jesus would later quote this in a synagogue in the book of Luke. So let's read just verse 1. The verse that is our theme verse is verse 4. But I want to read verse 1, 2, 3 just to give you context. It says this: the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me. This is Jesus. Because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to grant to those who mourn in Zion, to give them a beautiful headdress instead of ashes. Aren't you grateful for that? The oil of gladness instead of mourning, the garment of praise instead of a faint spirit. And then there's a switch in verse 3b. It begins to talk about they, and it prompts curiosity. Who are these that are being referred to as they? And then it says in verse 3b that they may be called oaks of righteousness. That's you and I. The planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. Then verse 4. I urge you to read it up and just to reflect and to let God speak to you, his heart. He says in verse 4, they shall build up the ancient ruins. They shall raise up the former devastations. They shall repair the ruined cities, the devastations of many generations. We are calling this year the year of rebuilding. it's a beautiful invitation that Jesus gives in verse 4, that they that experience this liberation that he came to give, then join hands with him to rebuild. And we'll be talking about rebuilding. And the question that we'll be asking ourselves this year is, what is your life built on? Because this came out of a place of reflecting that this year is a year that we really need to break ground and build structures. We shared some of that during the Stewardship Sunday. And I felt like God was just really talking to us and saying, the ultimate building is when hearts are built up to connect with him, when marriages are built up to connect with him, when families are built up on the solid foundation that is the rock. And the rock is none other than Jesus Christ. So we'll be talking a lot about rebuilding and re-examining and asking ourselves, what is your life built on? What is your career aspirations built on? What is your vision built on? Our marriages, our families, our parenting, everything that we get to do as a church, what are we really built on? And I feel the invitation for us this year is to be rebuilt in the solid foundation. Because if you look up Matthew, you will find the great parable that talks about two kinds of people, the wise builder and the foolish builder. And what happens to the person who is a foolish builder when they build on the sand, when the storms of life come, which are inevitable. But the house that is built on the rock doesn't move because it's built on a firm foundation. And I feel that's an invitation that God is giving to us. So I invite you to a year of rebuilding. I invite you to examine the foundations of your life, of your family, of your business, of anything that you aspire to do, that it may be founded on him. And I pray that at the end of 2025, we'll get to hear many testimonies. We'll get to hear testimonies of rebuilt relationships, sons really being reunited with fathers, daughters with fathers as well, broken relationships being rewired, because that's a work that God came to do, to rebuild. And as we also move into a season of building physical structures, may we never forget that this is God's ultimate desire, that he wants to rebuild your life and my life. So would you go ahead and have a wonderful, wonderful 2025. Thank you so much for your time. I again reiterate, I challenge you, pick some stones of gratitude, think about the invitation for prayer, and just think about what your life is really built on. Because as we move into another year, I pray that it won't just be quantity added. I pray that it will also be quality. So God bless you. May he grant you the desires of your heart. May he protect you. May he go ahead of you. May he grant you victory. And may you lean in and hear his voice saying, this is the way, walk in it. So God bless you. We love you. We are praying for you. Baraka. Happy 2025.